The war's immense cost leaves a gaping hole in the British treasury, a void that demands immediate attention and resolution. Across the Atlantic, 13 colonies thrive under the banner of the British Empire, enjoying a period of relative prosperity and growth. They had fought alongside the British, contributing significantly to the victory, and now expected to share in the benefits. However, a sense of unease begins to grip the colonies, as whispers of discontent start to spread among the populace. Colonial leader. The British Parliament, facing a financial crisis, sets its sights on the American colonies, viewing them as a source of much-needed revenue. They believe the colonies should bear the burden of the war debt, arguing that it was incurred in their defense. This belief gives rise to a series of acts aimed at extracting revenue from the colonists, including the infamous Stamp Act and Townshend Acts. The colonists, accustomed to a degree of self-governance and autonomy, are outraged by these new impositions. They cry out, "No taxation without representation." This slogan becomes a powerful rallying cry. This rallying cry encapsulates the colonists' core grievance, a deep-seated belief in their right to self-determination. Colonial leader. They believe they should not be subjected to taxes imposed by a parliament where they have no voice, no representation. The colonists see these taxes as an infringement upon their rights as Englishmen, rights they hold dear and are willing to defend. This fundamental disagreement over taxation becomes a simmering pot of resentment, fueling a growing sense of injustice. It sets the stage for a clash that will redefine the relationship between Britain and its American colonies, a conflict that will echo through history. The colonies, once loyal subjects, start to question the very nature of their bond with the crown, pondering their future. A new spirit of defiance begins to emerge, a determination to stand up for their rights and chart their own destiny. The Stamp Act of 1765 throws fuel on the smoldering embers of colonial discontent, igniting a firestorm of opposition. This act requires colonists to pay a tax on almost all printed materials, from newspapers to legal documents, playing cards, and even dice. Colonial leader. The colonists view this as a direct attempt to raise revenue without their consent, a violation of their rights as Englishmen. They respond with organized protests and boycotts of British goods, uniting in their resistance. In 1767, the Townshend Acts further inflamed tensions, adding fuel to the growing fire. These acts imposed taxes on goods imported from Britain, including tea, glass, and paper, essential items for daily life. The colonists see this as another blatant attempt to tax them without representation, deepening their resentment. The cry of "no taxation without representation" grows louder, echoing through the colonies. Colonial woman. The Tea Act of 1773 proves to be the breaking point, pushing the colonists to the edge. While seemingly offering a tax break on tea, it is seen as a deceptive move. The act grants the East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the colonies, undermining local merchants. This enrages colonial merchants and further fuels the flames of rebellion, uniting them against a common enemy. The stage is set for a dramatic confrontation, a pivotal moment in history. On a cold December night in 1773, under the cover of darkness, a group of colonists disguised as Native Americans board British ships docked in Boston Harbor, ready to make a bold statement. They dumped 342 chests of tea into the water, a significant financial loss for the British, sending shockwaves across the Atlantic, a clear message of defiance. This act of defiance, known as the Boston Tea Party, becomes a potent symbol of colonial resistance, inspiring future generations. The British government responds to the Boston Tea Party with fury. They enact a series of punitive measures known as the Coercive Acts, also called the Intolerable Acts by the colonists. These acts close Boston Harbor, restrict colonial self-governance, and quarter British troops in colonial homes. British official the Coercive Acts galvanize the colonies. They see these acts as a direct assault on their liberties. Colonial leaders from across the 13 colonies convene in Philadelphia in 1774 for the First Continental Congress. They petition the king to address their grievances and assert their rights. However, tensions continue to escalate. On March 5, 1770, a confrontation between British soldiers and colonists in Boston turns deadly. The Boston Massacre, as it comes to be known, leaves 5 colonists dead. Colonial leader. This event further inflames anti-British sentiment and pushes the colonies closer to the brink of war. Despite growing tensions, many colonists still hope for reconciliation with Britain. However, the British government remains intransigent, determined to assert its authority over the colonies. The chasm between the two sides continues to widen, making armed conflict increasingly likely. Section 4 shots heard around the world. Lexington conquered and the Continental Army. The simmering conflict finally erupts into open warfare in April 1775. British troops march towards conquered Massachusetts, intending to seize colonial military supplies. However, colonial militiamen, warned by writers like Paul Revere, are ready.
At dawn, on April 19, 1775, the first shots of the American Revolution are fired in Lexington, Massachusetts. The shot heard round the world, as it will later be called, marks the beginning of a long and bloody conflict.
Outnumbered but determined, the colonial militiamen engaged the British at Lexington and again at Concord. Following the skirmishes at Lexington and Concord, colonial leaders gather in Philadelphia for the Second Continental Congress. They realize that this is no longer just a protest, it is a full-fledged war for independence.
They establish the Continental Army and appoint George Washington as its commander-in-chief. Washington, a Virginian planter with military experience, faces the daunting task of transforming inexperienced militiamen into a disciplined fighting force. He will prove to be a brilliant strategist and an inspirational leader, guiding the Continental Army through 8 long years of war. Section 5. A Declaration of Freedom, the Birth of a Nation. In 1776, Thomas Jefferson, a young Virginian lawyer, puts pen to paper and drafts a document that will change the course of history. The Declaration of Independence, adopted by the Continental Congress on July 4, 1776, proclaims that the 13 American colonies are free and independent states.
The Declaration, a powerful articulation of Enlightenment ideals, asserts the fundamental rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It declares that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. This revolutionary document becomes a beacon of hope for oppressed people around the world.
The Declaration of Independence is a turning point in the American Revolution. It transforms a rebellion against unjust taxes into a fight for freedom and self-determination. It galvanizes support for the revolution both at home and abroad. The colonies are no longer fighting for their rights as Englishmen, they are fighting for their rights as a free and independent people. Section 6. The Tides of War, Saratoga and Yorktown, and the French Alliance. The American Revolution is a long and arduous struggle. The Continental Army, outnumbered and outgunned, faces a formidable foe in the British Army. However, the colonists' determination, combined with Washington's strategic brilliance, begins to turn the tide of the war.
The Battle of Saratoga, fought in upstate New York in 1777, proves to be a pivotal victory for the Americans. This decisive victory convinces France, eager to weaken its old rival Britain, to formally ally with the fledgling United States. The French alliance proves to be a game-changer. France provides much-needed financial and military support, including troops and warships.
The arrival of French forces under the command of General Rochambeau bolsters the Continental Army and tips the balance of power in favor of the Americans. In 1781, the combined American and French forces trap a British army under General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. The Siege of Yorktown, a decisive Franco-American victory, forces Cornwallis to surrender. This effectively ends major fighting in the American Revolution. Section 7, A New Nation Forged, the Treaty of Paris and the Legacy of Revolution. This pivotal moment in history marks the end of a long and arduous struggle for independence. The British defeat at Yorktown paves the way for peace negotiations. This decisive victory by the American forces signals the beginning of the end for British rule in the colonies. In 1783, representatives from the United States and Great Britain signed the Treaty of Paris. This historic agreement officially ends the Revolutionary War and sets the stage for a new era. The treaty formally recognizes the independence of the United States and grants the new nation vast territories. These lands stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River, providing ample room for growth and expansion.
With the war won and independence secured, the newly formed United States faces the daunting task of governing itself. The fledgling nation must now create a stable and effective government to ensure its survival. In 1787, delegates from the states gather in Philadelphia to draft a new constitution. This monumental task involves intense debates and compromises to create a framework for governance. The Constitution, ratified in 1788, establishes a system of government based on the principles of separation of powers, checks and balances, and federalism. This innovative structure aims to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful.
The American Revolution is a watershed moment in world history. It not only changes the course of American history, but also has a profound impact on global politics and ideologies. It marks the birth of a new nation founded on the principles of liberty, equality, and self-government. These ideals become the cornerstone of American identity and influence future generations. The revolution's ideals inspire people around the world to fight for their own freedom and independence. Movements for self-determination and democratic governance draw inspiration from the American example. The legacy of the American Revolution continues to shape the world today. Its principles resonate in the hearts of those who seek justice and equality.
The United States, founded on the ideals of the Revolution, has become a global superpower and a beacon of democracy. Its influence extends far beyond its borders, promoting democratic values worldwide. The principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence continue to inspire people around the world to strive for a more just and equitable world. The enduring legacy of the American Revolution serves as a testament to the power of ideals and the human spirit.